Welcome to Livzenastrology, the channel for updates and reflections, where we are grounded in the stars and elevated by consciousness. Thank you for tuning in. Hello, this is Carmela Yvette with the Livzenastrology podcast. I just wanted to talk on the reflections of the energies that are happening right now, especially with Mars conjunct the Sun in Sagittarius, which is squaring Saturn and Pisces right now. And we've also got this beautiful sextile happening with Venus in Libra and Mercury in Sagittarius. So what does this mean? How is this energy reflecting and showing up possibly? Well, again, I can only pull from my own experience as to the energies as they're presenting themselves real time. And after meditation this morning, I wrote down some key terms that were showing up for me in the process of these sextiles and the square. So sextiles is, to simplify astrology with these aspects, how I like to identify them is there are agreeable aspects and there are disagreeable aspects. So the agreeable aspects, from what I've been taught through astrology, would be sometimes your conjunctions, because those are kind of ambivalent depending on the planets that are conjunct, which are right next to each other. Your sextiles, your trines, those are your agreeable, and your squares, your oppositions, those are your disagreeable. And so right now, with Saturn and Pisces kind of having a disagreeable conversation with Mars and the Sun, what are they disagreeing on? Well, we know Sagittarius is about truth, about higher learning, about your beliefs. And with Saturn and Pisces, it's about what I wrote down was, steadfast compassion, disciplined forgiveness, making that your constant, practicing forgiveness, because Saturn is our taskmaster, it's our teacher, and Pisces is the oneness. It's where we hold compassion. It's where we feel connected to everything and all things, the unconscious or the subconscious, which rules the 12th house. So how are these planets connecting through the signs that they're in right now? Well, the energy that was coming through really strong, it's about having awareness, especially with the sextile, because right now we've got Venus, which is our love and what we're drawn to in Libra, which is where it likes to be at home in Libra. It's one of its ruling signs, is having an agreeable conversation right now with Mercury in Sagittarius. And so what are they agreeing on? Well, they're agreeing that while you have your own beliefs, Sagittarius, and you have your thoughts about your beliefs, with Venus in Libra, it's how you're relating your belief system to the other and how you're connecting through love and through awareness, really, with Saturn and Pisces, that we're all of it, right? So again, the terms that were coming through was the steadfast compassion and practicing forgiveness, because what was coming to me really strong today with these configurations is that, Live Zen comes from the premise that all is self. So in some point in time and space, we have been the victim in the stories that we're telling about ourselves and the other. We have been the perpetrator. And we can see this in society too, especially with all these hero stories, right? You have to have a villain to have a hero, and vice versa. And what I find fascinating is there's always a background story as to how the villain became the villain. And I find that so fascinating because at one point in time and space, and normally in the hero stories, especially when we're talking about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, the villain didn't start off as a villain. The villain had something happen where they were basically given or were a part of toxic environments or relationships that made them who they were. And so I feel, I love stories. I love watching movies to connect with the divine, especially if I'm watching these movies with my third eye on. And I always do that nowadays to be very conscious with my movie watching. I'm even asking my, my source self, like, what movie do I need to be watching now to connect with the energies? Like, I'm very precise, which is also Saturn and Pisces, right? Being very precise with the programs that you are connecting with, because you're literally programming your mind with the television. You're telling a vision of how you want to see your reality. So seeing it with your third eye on, which is the center point, which is coming from your heart space, I find is very efficient and a more heart-centered experience with what I'm projecting. So that's just something to consider as you guys are watching movies and television right now and having some time off for the holidays, engaging with these different programs. Just something to consider, to watch these programs with your third eye on, because it does matter. But anyway, coming back to the realization that every villain has a point of origin story, and a lot of it's tied up into trauma from childhood, wounds from the parents, usually wounds from the ancestors, from the familial or family lines. And so with Sagittarius right now, especially Mercury, just having this awareness, about our beliefs and our beliefs in love and relationships, how they were formed, and how you want to continue these patterns of either being the victim or the perpetrator, the agreeable or the disagreeable aspects, because we're all of it. And sometimes we're going to be casted into the villain, and sometimes we're going to be casted into the hero. And so with Saturn and Pisces, what keeps coming in is the words focused forgiveness. Because if you allow yourself to go into time and space with these energies and get into these disciplined practices that allow you time and space to reflect, which is also Saturn and Pisces. Focusing the practices that will help get you into this oneness, into the unity consciousness. Now, a lot of the conversation I'm even able to have today with you guys is because I just came off a fast. And I actually fasted for Thanksgiving, which was something that was very important to me to do. Because I know right now I'm working with the Ophiuchus energy, which is, really becoming potent at the end of November, coming into mid-December. And so a lot of astrologers don't really adhere to the 13th constellation or Ophiuchus, which is, Asclepius. And you can check out some previous LiveZen podcast about that, and you can check out the post for that. But anyway, this is really time for deep alchemy of the mind, of the spirit, of the physical body, of all aspects of self. There's really an opportunity to really transmute and transform a lot of these archetypes, converting from the victim and converting from the perpetrator and getting into oneness, into realization that you're all of it. So actually having those realizations and getting into the oneness helps you transcend the need for those dual archetypes. If you're in realization that you're all of it, that you're the one, then you don't have to be either. You don't have to be the victim or the perpetrator. You can just be. And this was shown to me today as I was outside and I picked a rose and there was a bee on it. It's a beautiful red rose. Anyway, the bee medicine was speaking to me about just be. Just be. You don't have to be either or. It's and more. And so, even transcending these archetypes is something that can really be a practiced intent. Especially with Saturn and Pisces, it's about the practice, right? It's the perfect practice. Again, practicing forgiveness, practicing how to forgive, practicing how to apologize, right? And because we're getting ready to, with Mars and the Sun getting ready to approach a beautiful trine happening with still the wounded child in Aries, the North Node, which is our past and relationships, and of course Chiron in Aries. So this is going to be happening, approaching all through the month of December. And I can already feel this energy within me on how to make it a better practice, the steadfast compassion, the disciplined forgiveness, and make that your constant on transcending the need to be in duality with any of these archetypes, these opposing forces, and realizing these opposing forces in this realm is how we see ourselves. It's through the contrast. But then the transcendence can be, can we forgive and can we apologize for the times that we were the perpetrator? Can we forgive for the times when we were the victim? These are and of course with Venus in Libra, it's about the other, right? Forgiving our relationships and apologizing to the people in our lives when we were toxic, when we were coming off of a fast and all these toxic emotions and thoughts were coming out into the field. And that's something I would also invite you to consider if you decide to practice the steadfast compassion and with the disciplined focus of doing sacred practices like in Pisces, with fasting, with going through maybe not talking for a while. What is it called? Silent retreats, things of that nature. Just really getting into your spiritual practices through moving your body consistently. This is an invitation with Saturn and Pisces. Again, structured, focused compassion, structured, focused spiritual practices can help you get to these states of awareness, of oneness, and transcending duality. But you have to make that part of your practice, right? So coming off this fast, I realized, wow, with fasting, if anybody's ever fasted consistently, you're going to realize that all the toxic things that were inside of you are going to come out. And it's in catching when they come out to transmute them, to having the alchemic tools that we just learned through Scorpio, and now that we're learning through Asclepius, to turn lead into gold, to take these toxic beliefs, archetypes that have hurt the inner child, right? Chiron and Aries, that have wounded us in the past with our South Node in Libra. How can we transcend? How can we learn to forgive? How can we learn to apologize with sincerity, right? And what was coming through really strong is that the awareness is that at some point in time and space, you're going to have to realize that you're all of it, that you are the mother, your own inner mother, and your own inner father, and your own inner child. And you're going to have a conversation, Sagittarius, with how you believe these archetypes to have shown up for you. And can you forgive? Can you become your own inner mother and nurture yourself back into maybe the nurturing you never received in childhood? Can you become your own inner father and developing the discipline and the loving awareness of how to take care of yourself without injuring yourself? Can you become your own inner child that learns to be playful without taking on the burdens of the world, and just to be in presence and to be in that playful, curious state? And if you've never learned how to be any of these aspects or to identify with these aspects in a healthy way, then this is an opportunity through your steadfast compassion, through disciplined forgiveness, focused intention to step into these realms, right? To step into these spaces possibly that you've never been to before, that you've never considered or didn't know how to tap into. Well, again, this is the practice. And another thing that was coming in, because there's so much after a fast, it's like, it's funny because I realize now why it's important to have silence after a fast, because there's going to be a lot of toxic things that come up and out of you. So channeling that into a very efficient and creative way, again, Saturn and Pisces would be a good utilization of how to turn lead into gold, takes all these toxins, alchemize it, and then turn it into something beautiful, right? Turn it into something that's relatable, that can help humanity, that can, even if it's learning how to write an apology letter, even if it's just you learning how to use your words, Mercury and Sagittarius, in a more healing way and a less, because Sag in its negative form or its, opposition form can be very judgmental, can be very harsh, can be, Sagittarius pride themselves on telling the truth, but they could also be very, while candor is a beautiful aspect, it can be also abusive truth, right? It's how we tell our truth. And there are different ways to speak our truth, right? But it's also in the learning process of, and maybe this is part of the healing, is learning how to express your authentic self without being combative, without having to berate the other, that this is my truth and you have to speak it. And maybe that's part of the wound of the child, Chiron and Aries, coming up to be seen, where maybe you didn't get to be heard, that you have a lot of thoughts, you have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of concepts, and that never got to be expressed. And because now your body's toxic, now they've converted into sort of toxic thoughts and actions. And now those toxins need to be released through certain tools like fastings, maybe taking certain herbs, whatever it is you're drawn to, however it is that you are called to detox. That's your own journey. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's all about intention. And just trust yourself to follow through on, if you're led to detox one way or another, however that looks. Please trust yourself. It's just taking the action to do so. And then setting intention with what exactly it is you're willing to transmute, to transform these toxic elements within you. What do you want to turn them into? And so this is really right now with the square happening, it's making us move, because squares is the disagreeable, but squares also create a need for change. So what needs to change with Saturn and Pisces and Mars conjunct the sun shows us fully in the full of light, Mars, the action we need to take with what in Sagittarius is our beliefs. We need to take action on what we believe and just to have an honest reflection. Are your beliefs still in alignment with where you want to go, with who you want to become? Are your beliefs serving you? Do they bring you joy when you think a certain thought? How does it feel in your body? Does it make you feel bad when you think a certain way? And again, this is becoming your own inner mother and father and child to say, hey, this thought's hurting you. Perhaps you need to quit thinking that thought. And if you have repetitive thought forms, you can't seem to let go of these thoughts, or these thoughts, can't let go of you. This is the time to do that focused discipline with Pisces and Saturn, is to say, okay, I need to do something consistently to detox these thoughts. So whether it's EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique, which is what I like to use, essential oils, which I use daily, can help with that, help you process some of these emotions, these thought forms that just hurt your body. When you think them, they hurt you. So this is the time to stand up and become your own mother and father, your own caretaker, and then simultaneously become your own inner child and be expressive as to what wounds want to be healed, how things feel when they're said, how they make your inner child feel when you're thinking certain things. So these are just concepts and ideas and points of reflection to consider as we're all moving through these energies, these currents, as they're moving through us, and just perhaps some action steps to take, some ways to reflect, and just being very precise with the energies. Just having, again, if you don't know how to have compassion for yourself, which if you don't have compassion for yourself, you can't have compassion for the other. So practice it. Practice what it would be like to forgive. Practice what it would be like to receive the apology, perhaps that you never received. from any of your perceived perpetrators. This is the time to really do the deep dive, because if you want to consider the Ophiuchus energy, the 13th constellation, maybe the hidden astrological, hidden in plain sight, astrological energies that can help us heal and transform and really totally transmute all these toxins so that we can stay steadfast in our longevity, in our health, in our robustness. These are the tools that you can be utilizing. These are just points of reflection that you can be considering as we are all going through these densities, especially after just coming off time and spent with our families. And as we're going into continued holy days of Christmas, and there'll be more. Check out Lives in Astrology, where there's going to be more reflections on the Christmas holidays and holy days and just ways to navigate it. And of course, if you want to reach out and just touch base and see where these aspects are happening in your chart, I would be happy to help in that way. But I just really want to thank you for tuning into this channel, for connecting to the content. And if you found any value, please like, subscribe, share. So much appreciated. Thank you for your time and space. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And much love, as we are all, again, it's not about being perfect, but it is the perfect practice. And with these agreeable and disagreeable energies happening between Saturn and Pisces and Mars and the Sun and Sagittarius, and of course Venus and Libra, having an agreeable aspect with Mercury right now, it's really a time to just learn to love your thoughts, learn to feel better in your skin, in your body, in your heart, in your soul, to connect to all aspects of self in a compassionate way. Steadfast compassion, discipline, forgiveness. These are the codes that are coming through today. So thank you for connecting to the channel. So much love.